Hello and welcome to another episode of Atomic Vinyl Reviews. And today I'm just doing a quick review and sort of basically my sort of initial reactions, even though I actually watched the movie like 2 days ago. I just haven't had time to do this video. But my sort of initial review of The Predator. So I've been looking forward to seeing this film, even though even just going in from the trailer, I had some sort of reservations about it, which I'll get into in a second. I'm gonna try and vaguely not really spoil anything, especially I might spoil some stuff that was in the trailer. So if you're super tight about those spoilers, then don't watch the beginning of this. But then I'll get into the actual film. So just before we get into the actual those sort of points, I will sort of say that just quickly, for those of you who don't want any spoilers, I'll just say that overall, the reception for this film has been like pretty much overwhelmingly negative. Then again, I haven't really gone out of my way to find reviews for it. I watched like one or two, and they weren't overly positive, especially one by a certain YouTuber called Decker Shadow. Oh my God, if you ever want to see a man yelling his head off alone in his car about Predator, watch that review. It's kind of hilarious. Oh man. But so that's been like the reception for the film. And now, even though I went into it without very high expectations, I was actually overall pleasantly surprised with it. I will say that this film did do things with a Predator mythology that I wasn't too happy about. However, as a standalone film for entertainment value alone, it was actually pretty entertaining all the way through. And the characters were I wouldn't say they were overly developed or anything like that, but shh, I'm filming a video. Yeah, ma'am, I'm filming a video. You need to be quiet. hmm Um, so I wouldn't say that the characters were overly developed or anything like that, but at least they kind of tried to give them personality. Uh, and it was a sort of more of like an action comedy type film, really. And for the most part, like I said, it was pretty entertaining, and the sort of character dynamics are pretty good. And so I would say in that regard, I do recommend it. Now I'm probably just gonna jump into spoilers really soon, so with not really sure when, so you should probably like zone out and watch the movie if you are afraid of spoilers. So however, like I said, some of the issues I had, like even going in, seeing the trailer initially, was that there's this sort of recent obsession that I've noticed with Predator movies, and I say recent obsession, I'm just going over the last two ones, because we had the Predator, which was this one, and we had the one that came before this one, which was called Predators. You know, the one where they sent, what's his name, Adrian Brody and a bunch of other actor characters off to a planet to be hunted by predators. And, you know, that film was pretty enjoyable, sorry. Um, and you know, I haven't watched that one in a little while. I actually have the DVD of it back there, but so I'm not really sure which one's better or worse. But at the moment, I probably need to rewatch that one to have a fuller idea of it. However, I will say that they both have this sort of obsession with giant predators, and I don't know why this is, because in both films, the classic predator is just so awesome. I'm gonna go into this quite a bit later on, but in both films, I found the need to have the giant ones sort of unnecessary, and they were just far less interesting, and it's just a case of like, I feel like it's one of those Hollywood things where it's like, you just gotta have more of this, or bigger is better, and it's just like, and especially if in this film they made the giant predator like all CGI. and the design was somewhat a lot less interesting, especially in execution, with the strong reliance on CGI for that character. Um, and yeah, because the classic Predator in this film was actually really awesome. The practical effects that they used, because I think pretty much all the time it was just a guy in a suit, apart from maybe like when they're leaping through buildings or something like that. But for the majority of the time, you could see it was a practical effect for the classic Predator, and it looked really good. A very, very convincing looking practical effect, and I really wish they did more of this in films, because there is an actual difference. Even in some of the best CGI, there's still just, if you can do something with practical effects, do it in practical effects. It looks so good if you do it right. But then you had the giant predator, which, like I say, feels very gimmicky to me, and it's doesn't seem. It's kind of like, in Jurassic Park 3, where they brought in the Spinosaurus and then it killed the T-Rex, and like pretty much everyone is just like, why? But we love the T-Rex. Why are you sort of trying to introduce this other creature? But granted, the Spinosaurus actually was very, very well. What are you laughing at? It was very well animated, and that was also a practical effect. So I think the Spinosaurus was actually a lot more awesome in that film than, for example, the giant predator was in this film. But yeah, so that's just sort of my initial thing with the trailers. Those were sort of my thoughts, and seeing the film, it definitely strengthened that opinion, because yeah, the original Predator was really cool in this one. Um, but then we get into some of the weird story things. So we get, no, don't eat that. The so big spoiler alert. So the classic Predator was coming to Earth to save people, and what he initially does, so he crash lands on the planet. The first thing he does is he starts murdering people, which is just like, okay, an interesting way of going about this. But I guess if a predator didn't go around killing people, they would sort of be out of character anyway. And stop eating the thing. And sorry, my birds are getting me off topic. Um, so he comes to Earth, he starts killing people, which that was awesome to watch, and I was pretty much always like throughout the film, I was almost always rooting for the classic Predator. I wanted that one to win, even if he's going around killing people. I'm like, yeah, kill him. And so it was a bit sad when he was finally killed by the giant predator, because I didn't like the giant predator nearly as much. But then we get into sort of probably the most sort of controversial-ish type part of the plot, where it really, um, like, the thing about movies, like sequels that are made much later to like classic movies, I really don't like it when they go back and they retcon stuff, or like, kind of in the same way that, like, this was my issue with Prometheus and Alien Covenant. They kind of go like, Alien is one of the greatest films of all time. It's my second favorite film of all time, Gojira being the first. But Alien is, monumentally classic. And in a movie like Prometheus or Alien Covenant, it really just goes back in and sort of destroys some of the mythos and the mystery of those films, and just sort of degrades the sort of character, I think, by sort of introducing all that like biological warfare, like just the all the weird other stuff that the sort of the black goo can do, and all of that. It's just the character of the alien is a bit different than something quite so. I'm gonna get into this in another video probably, so actually just I'm not going to expand on that, but it's sort of the same thing sort of applied with this one when they said that the predators were actually going around sort of um, collecting genetic material from all the things that they kill to enhance themselves. I felt like that was a little bit unnecessary. It didn't like it's not the I don't think it's like quite as bad as anything like in Alien Covenant and Prometheus. However, it's still I think there was enough with the sort of predator sort of honor and hunter culture like that we got from some of those previous films. There was enough there to develop their culture and their world a little bit without having to go into the typical sort of bio engineering genetic stuff, because that comes up so much in these sci-fi films that it really isn't original anymore. Like there's like it's like been countless creatures in the Doctor Who universe who have, for example, have done similar things, and like I don't know, the Borg from Star Trek also did similar things, and all sorts of like it's not an original concept. However, the predator culture of just being like a culture of sort of this honor and warriors and expanding on that in a different ways, it would have been so much more original, I feel. So I had a little bit of a gripe with that, but well, like I said, I'm a bit more loose about the Predator universe in my mind than the Alien one, because those films are a little bit more sort of fun, happy-go-lucky in a way. But whoa, and yeah, so because I wanted to go into some positives, because even though this film has been, you know, slammed by a lot of reviewers out there, I feel that this film actually does have some positives that go a little bit overlooked. And that is sort of, I see these positives because going into films these days, my major concern, and this is something Hollywood has a really big problem sort of doing very well, is, you know, creating good or at least entertaining characters. I don't know why this is, but you'd think if there's a whole industry built on making film, on the art of making films, they'd find like some way to filter out like just the plain god awful characters in a lot of these films. But they seem to keep filtering through into a lot of these blockbuster films. This film, even though the characters are probably nowhere near as good as, say, in the classic first film, or you know, some of the other sort of Predator films, they're definitely better than a lot of some of these recent films we've got, and even, yeah, like I was saying, some other Predator films. They at least manage to be entertaining and fun through most of it, and somewhat funny through a lot of it too. This film could be quite funny as well. It's like I said, it's sort of more of an action comedy film, mainly an action sort of film. And actually, even just by the music, it kind of feels a little bit Indiana Jonesy here and there. Sort of some John Williams stuff going in with the music, which I don't think it fit quite well, but I did really like the callbacks to the original Predator themes and like those jungle drums which they put in, and like the military sort of marchy type sounds that they had going from the original film, which was really cool to hear. So I enjoyed most of the music. Just going on as a positive, especially those callbacks. But like I was saying, the characters, uh, they most of them weren't particularly like super memorable, and they had sort of traits which weren't like super in depth or anything, but at least they were like they went on the notion of sort of they had the general sort of character outlines and their quirks, and they sort of worked off each other here and there, and there was some you know, subtleties in there to sort of identify the different relationships and the working between these characters, which was more than I can say for a lot of films. Um, like if you want like going into this film, for example, like a lot of people like who really panned this film, I feel as though they're sort of forgetting about another Predator film that exists out there. one by the title of Alien versus Predator Requiem. Yeah, we don't talk about that one on this channel. Actually, we might end up talking about that one because I feel as though that's going to be a really fun rage review. Let me know in the comments if you want that to happen because I can rage about that film. Oh yeah. But yeah. So compared to that one or even recent films like I don't know. The last one I reviewed was The Meg. I found this film was generally more entertaining than that film. I think The Meg had some, the side characters were okay, but the lead character and a lot of the other dynamics around that were just really poorly done in that film. But so this film, I feel like it has an acceptable sort of like they did a pretty good job with all the character stuff in this one. Um, and that's something that I liked about this film. It was lighthearted, and it wasn't overly serious, so they could have some fun with some of this stuff. Which when a film does a good job of being lighthearted, it's a lot harder for me to be mad at it than something that tries to be really serious but just fails miserably, kind of like Alien Covenant or Godzilla 2014 or something like that. Um, where where it really goes out of its way to be really serious and gritty and like try and tell some sort of deeper story, but really it doesn't have any idea what it's doing. However, this one this one didn't really try and go down that route. It just sort of um, this one felt a little bit more like a comic book type of movie. Not quite in the vein of Marvel, but it was sort of going a little more in that direction. Other stuff that I liked about it, like I was saying, the practical effects when they used them were actually really good. I already brought up the classic Predator. Um, yeah, I'd say watch this movie just for seeing the classic Predator brought to life on the screen again. Um, I'd say I probably could have used more of that guy. I really wish they did because that was my favorite character in the movie. I mean, honestly, just really great to see the classic Predator again. Um, it had all the the details of the Predator that we've known and love. We get to see him, wearing the mask without the mask. He had the weird vagina throat again, as he did in the second film. Um, and just really sort of fluid motion with the animatronics of the face. And it's a really cool design, and I think they pulled it off well, like I was saying. Um, they also did a great job of the practical effects of stuff like the interior of the spaceship. The Predator ship was done like when the people were going around in there, just the sets there were beautifully made. So that's another positive just about the effects of this film. What else comes to mind? Oh well, one thing that I will cite as a positive is even though like this was a film which one of the main characters was a little kid, he wasn't too annoying. Like for those Gamera fans out there, you know what a Kenny is if you watch a lot of reviews of Gamera films. A Kenny in the sort of kaiju fandom is generally slated as like a little annoying child in a film that's made as the lead role who always like knows everything but goes out of their way to do stupid things but is just plainly annoying and does bad decisions but nothing bad happens to them. um, but the kid in this one was I didn't find him annoying at all, fortunately, because with child actors in films, there's always, like an area where they could really be bad. But there's also a chance that they could be really good for, like if you watch Stranger Things or any of those sort of movies. Well, that's a Netflix TV show, but you know what I mean. Like that's where you get like child actors which are doing really good. But then you get the Kennys on the other end of the spectrum, which are far more common. But then you get, fortunately, like in this film, you get a kid that does pretty well. So good work from him. Even like yeah, and even like the whole cast, like I was saying earlier, they I didn't find anyone particularly annoying. Maybe like the lead villain guy was a little bit annoying. Like I don't see why he had to be so cartoonishly like evilly sounding or that sort of stuff. But we'll get into that a little later. What else was good about this one? Some of the action was pretty good. But on so some of the action was actually pretty fun. Especially seeing the predators sort of go around slaughtering people. And I did like uh, the predator dogs that the giant predator had, especially like the one that got like brain brain fucked and turned out to be like this friendly dog the rest of the film. I thought that was pretty funny. Um, and there was the funniest thing in this film was actually when there was the kid going around on Halloween wearing the predator mask. And he blows up a house and kills a bunch of people. Oh my, just the image of like this little tiny kid with this giant metal mask and this gauntlet on this, um, um, and he just nukes a house by accident. Oh, that was hilarious actually. So, yeah, I'd say see this film just for that scene and the classic Predator, and yeah. What else can I say? I guess I'll go into some of the more plot spoilery stuff. So I was talking about earlier about the genetic modification stuff and how I thought some of that was a bit unnecessary. And while, the plot was sort of focused about that, I feel like they could have done something a little bit different in it because it makes it seem in the film it's sort of implying that all predators do this, whereas I feel like it would have been much better if, for example, they just say that this faction of predators and like the regular predators, like just that this was some sort of strange faction of them that were trying to like upgrade themselves, but that these other ones were like against this because there was like no honor in it or something like that. I think that would have worked out better, and that's maybe something that they might go into later, hopefully. Because if it is implied that all predators like this is just what they do, then I feel like it kind of waters down again. Like I was saying earlier, it sort of waters down the sort of mythos of them and their culture, and it just doesn't quite meld with sort of the predator ideals, I think. Um, I did like the consistency, however, that the predators don't attack people who are unarmed. Uh, that worked out pretty good, I think. That's always something that's very interesting about the predators. Like I was saying, they are a very interesting alien species overall. And I'm not really entirely sure how I feel about like the predators giving them basically a Predator Iron Man suit at the end. Um, the like it, I don't think it's the right direction to take the Predator universe in. I feel like people being just stalked by a predator, sort of either in the jungle or in the city, works a lot better than sort of like this sort of action superhero type thing that this looks like this universe is going to go into, and like this galactic war. Because already this film, even from the opening scenes, had sort of like a slightly Star Warsy feel. Like I was saying, some of the music was sort of Star Warsy, Indiana Jonesy type, sort of John Williamsy esque theme where it didn't. But then they also sort of mixed in some of those classic jungly sort of huntery vibe things, and so it was a strange mix of that stuff. Another funny thing I will add is just before the end of the film, when they were like the weird pod that survived. Um, just before that pod survived, like it opened and they were like, it's called the Predator Killer. Like literally when they said that, I'm like, oh my god, is Arnold Schwarzenegger in there? I got my hopes up so high for that split second, even though I was like saying, no, no way. If he were in this film, he would be like slated in the credits and everything, and everyone would be talking about it and stuff. But yeah, it was just the mech suit. Yeah, I don't know. But some other stuff I'll bring up. Like I was saying, some of the action is pretty good. However, a lot of it is a bit confusing. This film sort of, aside from the the Predator universe, in sort of the direction they're taking that in and the controversy of that, which I think is a weaker aspect of this. I think like technically the main weakest aspect of this film is actually some of the editing makes it a little incoherent during a lot of the fight scenes. I would have no idea what was going on through some bits. Like the cuts were very sharp, and I felt like they were taking shots from one angle and cutting to a complete different one, and really obscuring what was going on in some choppy editing. So it did have some incoherent moments. I didn't know what character was doing what when and who was dying and stuff like that in certain scenes, or what was going on. And I felt like some things that were going on weren't explained particularly well, either through somebody pronouncing something poorly and I just missed it, or like a plan didn't make sense, or I don't know. So it does have a couple of those little bits. However, like I was saying, I don't think this film is quite as bad as everyone is saying. I think it is, as far as the Predator movies go, I think it is, um, I, I think it is, to in the like bottom third, but somewhere towards the top bottom third of them. But I think it is definitely an entertaining film. Like, I think I still would put it as I'm not sure, I haven't watched Predator 2 in a while, so I'm not sure where I'd stack that one up as. But this one is guaranteed to be better than Alien vs. Predator Requiem. Absolutely, so it is by no means the worst Predator film. However, it is not sure where to stack it up actually, because I probably need to rewatch some of them, like I was saying, to have a full idea of where it would go. But it is sort of it's a mid-range film, but in the Predator series. My personal favorite Predator films are the first one, and then Alien vs. Predator, the first one. I know, a lot of people have issues with that film, but it's kind of my guilty pleasure. Alien vs. Predator. I actually really love that film. So this one, I'd have to rewatch the other two just to kind of know where it would stack up. But it's somewhere in that mix of three. Like I think Alien vs. Predator 2 would be the next one after it. I mean, no, Jesus, no, Alien vs. Predator 2. I think Predator 2 would be my third place option, and then either this one or Predators. They're sort of about in about the same position, I'd say, and then Alien vs. Predator Requiem would be like about a kilometer down under those ones, in the pits of hell, in terms of my favorite Predator films. So I think that about wraps up my review. I've been talking for a little bit longer than I anticipated, so I apologize for that. Do let me know what you thought about this film in the comments below. I'm eager to hear all your thoughts, and if there's anything I sort of forgot to bring up. But yeah, overall, I'd say it's actually probably worth a watch. If you are a Predator fan, don't, I know there are so many really negative reviews of this thing, but I'd say just watch it, go in, low expectations, just go in to have fun. Like, if you're sort of worried about, like, the Predator universe, you're probably not gonna have the best time, but especially if you're just a sort of a casual action movie fan, and you just like creature effects and monsters and stuff like that. So I think you might have a blast with this one, and a couple of laughs. So yeah, without further ado, may all your vinyl be irradiated vinyl. Over and out.